Hello, class. This problem was sent to me over the weekend. This is a homework problem that you have. It's actually, I think, a review problem from um, maybe topics that were not specifically taught in this chapter, but it's concepts that you may need to know for this particular chapter that we're going over this week. But this is what we call a piecewise function. And it's not asking for anything fancy. All this is asking for you guys to do is to graph this piecewise function. Now, the way I like to explain a piecewise function is that this is a function that is broken up into different pieces. And we need to graph each individual piece and then just kind of put it on the same coordinate plane together. So we have essentially two pieces to this graph. I have this first piece here that I will graph in red, and I have this second piece here that I will graph in blue. Now you can go on YouTube, and if this does not help you a lot, you can find tons of different videos, and people kind of explain these different ways. But the way I like to do this is I like to make tables for each section of the domain. So when I say each section of the domain, this piecewise function has stipulations. And what I have for number one here in red, that is saying for all my x values that are less than or equal to -1, that's my domain. That's saying when your x values or your domain is less than or equal to 1, that your output will be 5. Your output will be 5, or your range will be 5. So when my x is -1, what I'm going to do I will always start at this number. I will put values in there that is less than -1. So I have -2, I have -3, and you can go as far as you want. But I mean, we're just kind of sketching this. And if I'm not mistaken, on your homework, this is multiple choice. So I think you'll very easily be able to choose the correct answer here. But this is my x values. And I chose them again because of the little stipulation that they gave me. Um, and my y values in this case will always be 5 because that is a constant function. They didn't give me an equation there. They're saying no matter what, as long as the x value is less than or equal to -1, then my output will always be 5, you know, for that domain. Now, there's one other thing I like to highlight here, and it's the symbol. It's less than or equal to. So let's go back to college algebra or high school algebra or whatever the previous math class that you had that discussed algebra. Okay, so think about that less than or equal to value. What does that mean, that symbol? That means that equals to part here, that is saying that -1 is included there. That's saying that my x can be less than or equal to -1. So that's saying that -1 can be included in that table. So this is a habit that I have for students. If you have that equal to symbol there, I would always tell my students to put a closed circle there to remind us that that value there is included. Okay? So let's graph that. I'm going to come over here to my table. Let's zoom out. I don't want to mess anything up. Oops. That's exactly what I'm doing here. Um, let's see if I can, and there we go. Let's zoom out some. I want to plot these points. I have -1, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, because I have a closed circle there, sometimes those points will be open or closed. That first point you've got to be careful with. But because I put a closed circle there, I know that that point's included and it's going to be closed in the graph. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I have -2, 5. -3, 5, -4, 5, and I can see my pattern. It's going to go this way forever, and it's kind of going inside of my equation there. So I'm just going to stop. And that line's kind of skimpy and small. Let's make it a little bit larger. I have to be careful how I touch this screen because kind of mess things up sometimes. But you want to make sure, guys, I'm very picky. When you graph your equations, when you graph those lines, make sure you kind of put some length on those lines and you put arrows on the end so that you show me and you're telling me that that line extends forever. Okay. All right. So the last part here, make sure my pen's not too skimpy and small. The last part here is going to be in blue there, and I have a different stipulation for my domain. This time, my stipulation is that my x is going to be greater than -1. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a table, okay? And I'm still going to put x and y. All right, but in my table, I'm still going to start at -1, but I want to start at -1, but I want to include points greater than -1. So that's going to be -1, 0, 1, 2. You can keep going, like I said, as far as you want to, but for right now, I'm just going to stop right there. But guys, I want you to look at this. I'm going to highlight this symbol again. That's greater than. Okay, think about college algebra or high school algebra, greater than. If does that mean that I can include that -1 in my table? Does that greater than symbol include -1? Or does that say values just strictly greater than -1? That greater than is saying that I can include all values greater than -1, but I can't actually include that -1. So we have to graph that -1 because you got to think to yourself, there's a lot of values on my graph between -1 and 0, right? Decimals and fractions. And we have to graph all of those, and we've got to get very close to -1, but we can't actually graph that -1. So that's why in algebra we have open and closed circles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an open circle there. I'm going to let my graph start at -1, but I'm going to put an open circle explaining that I can't actually include that -1 as a point on that part of the graph. Okay. So how do I find my y value? Well, look there. My y value is equal to x squared. So maybe I should change this a wee bit and just put x squared, which is going to be equal to my y. And then I could put my ordered pair. I'm going into my graph, but that's okay. I don't think it's going to be this low down. All right, so my x squared here is going to be -1 squared, which is 1. So my value is -1, 1. For 0, I have 0 squared, which is 0. So my ordered pair is 0, 0. For x squared, for 1, I have 1 squared, which is 1. So my ordered pair is 1, 1. And for 2, I have 2 squared, which is equal to 4, which gives me 2, 4. And if I graph that, what will I have? I have -1, 1, and that is going to be an open circle. That is the only open circle that I have. Remember, I put that open circle there to remind me that that point isn't actually included on this part of the graph, but it's kind of like a placeholder there. That's where I want to start drawing my graph, but that -1 isn't actually included. Okay, so I have 0, 0. Oops, wrong color. Why is this not working for me? 0, 0. I have 1, 1. I have 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that pattern is going to continue. So I'm going to just kind of draw this and let it keep going. So guys, that is my piecewise function. It's literally graphing multiple pieces on the same coordinate plane. And like I said, if this was kind of confusing for you, you can look on YouTube, and there are tons of other videos that would explain this for you. You guys have a wonderful day.